Hi, I'm Nancy Gosling. I am the acting dean of our Cathedral Church of St. Paul.
And I'm Joe Robinson, the rector at Christ Church in Cambridge. Together we've served as co-chairs for the fourth phase of our mission strategy over this past year. Our charter was to begin the organizing of implementation of what's been learned earlier in the process as mission strategy teams listened to your concerns, hopes, and dreams all across the diocese. Standing briefly are the other members of our team who will be introducing themselves shortly. Nice work. That's it.
A year ago, our diocese committed to a bold mission strategy under the general invitation of embracing brave change. Imagine what we can do together with God's help. Reimagining our congregations, building our relationships, and engaging our world. These are the broad brush strokes that organize our whole diocesan mission strategy as adopted by our convention last year, and in which so many of you are already actively engaged. Good on you, good on us. Today we will share our recommendations for 2018 and beyond as we continue in this ambitious multi-year vision. We will offer 3 very specific recommendations for mission strategy that actually require your involvement. Our first recommendation is to invite you and your congregations to participate in an Indaba-like process for building relationships. Now, to tell you more, we have asked Bishop Gail Harris to share her experience at the last Lambeth conference. She'll be followed by Bill Parnell, our canon to the ordinary, who will talk about the same process and his experience with it in the Diocese of New York. Both of them will be followed by our mission strategy team members who have led us in our planning around Indaba. They will talk about how we envision carrying this work forward in Eastern Massachusetts. Bishop Gail.
Indaba, South African word meaning a discussion of matters, of concerns, of seriously listening and deeply caring. To reverse what Charles Dickens wrote, Lambeth 2008 was the worst of times and the best of times. As we gathered from the Anglican Communion in 2008, there was more than just tension and anxiety. Among some of the bishops, there was animosity that was palatable and hostility that was well-voiced and seen in faces and coming from hearts. And it seemed especially this tension and animosity was aimed towards the US and towards Canada because we had spoken out on issues of sexuality and orientation that the rest of the communion did not agree with. It seemed also that, especially for the Episcopal Church, there was the specter of being censured and condemned and perhaps even thrown out of the communion. And after hearing stories about the experience of women bishops, especially Barbara Harris's experience at Lambeth 1998, I was especially uncomfortable. The planners of the Lambeth 2008 said that we would use the South African tradition of Indaba, the discussion of deep matters. So we were to work together, those 600 who decided to come, though there were 200 who boycotted, who said that we need to go our separate ways, that we don't have to have anything to do with one another anymore, saying we no longer had need of each other, that we were each a separate island, self-sufficient and self-satisfied. When I arrived at my small Indaba group, I noted that I was the only woman. And in my group was a bishop from New Zealand, one from England, a Roman Catholic bishop from the western part of Africa, I believe it was Nigeria. There were 3 bishops from Central Africa and 1 bishop from South Africa, where Indaba originated. And each morning we were to gather and to discuss the readings from the Gospel according to John and how they fit into our context of our ministry and our life. I have to say from the beginning that 4 of the African bishops and the bishop from England even refused to acknowledge my presence. And yet, as I tried to enter into the spirit of and the way of Indaba, of deeply listening and being respectful and being present to one another, I understood that no matter what I said, I was not invited in. It was clear that one of the African bishops had such hostility towards me because I was a woman and an American. Therefore, I was antithetical to all that he understood about the church. That because I understood that we were to seek the full inclusion of all people, regardless of race, gender, or sexual orientation, the glares I felt from this bishop said that not only was there division in the communion, there was nowhere but to lay it at my feet. He saw himself as an island set apart from me. And as St. Paul tried to warn us, it was like the eyes saying to the feet, I have no use for you. But the spirit and intent of Indaba was more severely compromised by the English bishop, who thought it was his job to wax eloquently and constantly. This man loved the sound of his own voice and did not let anyone speak. And after 3 days of him going on and on and on and on and on and on and on, I finally decided I needed to speak up. And so I turned to my brother bishop with the great hostility, who had not had a chance to say one word. And I said, we're here for Indaba, and I would like to hear what my brother from Central Africa had to say. A spark went off. A light came on in the midst of that hostility. And this bishop stared at me and said, one does not enter into deep listening unless one is invited in. And you, my sister, you have invited me into the conversation when these other bishops did not. My sister, we need to listen to each other's stories. My sister, we need to learn to love one another. And from that moment on, Indaba really became incarnate in our discussions, in our being with one another. We began to deeply listen and understand that though we may be divided, there's also more things that bring us together, that we were richer hearing each other's experience. We found in Indaba, by listening to one another, that we did have a need of each other. We could move on in this process of understanding that we are better when there are more of us, when we cross boundaries that we construct rather than God has constructed. Indaba taught all of us in that group, even the English guy who kept talking all the time, that we really wanted to know each other, that we really did have need of each other. And as St. Paul wrote in his letter to the Galatians, that we are members of one another.
The experience of Indaba at the 2008 Lambeth Conference paved the way for sharing wider conversations throughout the Anglican Communion using the Indaba model. With the leadership of Canon Phil Groves of the Anglican Communion Office in London, a number of dioceses from around the Communion were invited to take part in Indaba groups. The Diocese of New York, where I then served as Archdeacon for Mission, was linked with the Diocese of Derby in England and the Diocese of Mumbai in India. Each diocese chose a team of 8 people, 4 clergy and 4 lay, to participate in these gatherings, with each diocese hosting the teams from the other 2 for visits of about 2 weeks. The goal was deeper understanding, to get a sense of what the church is like in a totally different context, to see things that look familiar and others that seem strange, to experience the ways in which God is at work in the lives of fellow Anglicans, and to get a sense of how the church is rooted in a different culture and how it's transforming lives. New York was the first diocese in the group to host, and I had the privilege of serving as the facilitator for the visit of the teams from Mumbai and Derby. There were opportunities over a 2-week period for our guests, as well as for our own New York team, to visit a variety of congregations and communities around the diocese, with ample opportunities to spend time in conversation and reflection with one another. They worshiped together, visited parish-based community service programs, talked with one another while sightseeing, stayed in homes, and met a whole bunch of New York Episcopalians. It probably wasn't a surprise that this was an eye-opener for our visitors, but something else was a big surprise. The New Yorkers were learning as much as were the folks from England and India. We realized this: we didn't know our own diocese. We didn't know our own diocese, but we also knew we wanted to know it better. New York was about to enter into a strategic planning process, much like what led to our new mission strategy here in Massachusetts. Bishop Andy Dici realized that Indaba could be a useful tool for helping members of the diocese get better acquainted with the many contexts for mission that together comprise the mission of the diocese, from Staten Island to the Hudson Valley, from great wealth to extreme poverty, in urban, suburban, and rural settings. The goal, he said, was to develop a shared understanding of our common life. Out of this, a New York Indaba was designed, and ultimately it included representatives from 2/3 of the congregations of the diocese. Congregations were linked with 2 others, with teams of 4 representing each one. Each congregation hosted the teams from the other 2 for a weekend, getting to know something about the congregation, the community in which it was situated, and one another. They learned about the strengths and challenges of the host congregation and compared notes about their own. They got out and toured the community, visiting places where the congregation was making a difference, and sometimes just going out to have fun together. They began to get to know team members and their families, including staying overnight in one another's homes. That was the hardest part for many New Yorkers. But the international Indaba participants knew that the genuine conversations were far more likely to get started around the kitchen table than in the parish hall. Over the course of several months, these weekend gatherings unfolded with ongoing communication in between through shared news, invitations to major parish events, and ongoing prayer for one another. The result is that Indaba has become an ongoing part of their diocesan life, with regular opportunities to get to know other congregations and offer mutual support and encouragement. There have even been numerous spin-off Indabas, such as a regular gathering of wardens in one region and collaborative efforts in another. New York is helping that diocese to flourish with that shared understanding of common life that is the real fruit of Indaba.
In the coming weeks, we hope to design an Indaba process which will provide an opportunity for all of us to get to know one another better and to develop a deeper understanding of our common life here in the Diocese of Massachusetts. We want to expand our working group by recruiting a person from each deanery so that we can gather together in February to design a Massachusetts Indaba in which each congregation will have an opportunity to participate.
Imagine if we could connect more easily to one another, to share our gifts, and join together in mission. Good afternoon. My name is George Chu, and I'm from the Church of Good Shepherd Dedham. I'm really glad to be here to introduce you to the second initiative that our mission strategy implementation organizing team has recommended for our diocese, engaging with a tool we call Mission Match. During the mission strategy process, listening process, we heard very clearly that we in our diocese have a deep desire to connect. Engaging in the Indaba project that we described before lunch is one intentional way we can do that work in our diocese in the coming years. We also heard in the listening process a deep need to connect and share information, working and learning together in order to strengthen our ministries. Mission Match can help. The tool we're about to show you is in use already in many dioceses. That word will trip me up every time. Dioceses across the Episcopal Church. It helps congregations identify strengths, better utilize everyone's gifts for ministry, and find areas where local assets meet local needs. Mission Match is a web-based platform that collects information about all Episcopal institutions and all dioceses across the Episcopal Church. To make it work, individuals on parish or diocesan teams add content for each church, chapel, ministry, or school that describes who they are and what they do. Teams can gather this information from parish websites, annual reports, or any other source they wish to use. The information is gathered all together on one map, and then any of us can use the tool to explore our own church's ministries, identify others who are engaged in ministries that interest us, and discern how our congregation might better serve the larger community by partnering with congregations whose ministries pair well with ours. We've piloted this effort with 9 parishes in the Cape and Islands Deanery, including St. Mary's in Barnstable, whose profile page you can see in the magnifying glass. If you were to scroll through, you'd also see all their ministries, including BEAS, or Be Engaged, Animal Stewardship Through Service, which is a group dedicated to improving the lives of animals and educating parishioners, and you can see a picture of it here. Right now, any of us, or any of you, can ask Mission Match to find parishes in the Cape and Islands Deanery who have particular kinds of ministries, children or youth programs, liturgies in various languages, pantries providing goods to our neighbors, and so on. And you can use the contact information you find there to follow up on any questions about these ministries you may have. Parish websites and a presence on Facebook provide good opportunities for us to describe who we are. Mission Match actually allows us to connect. Now we'll tell you a few stories about churches that have used Mission Match to great benefit, and then share with you our hopes and plans for the way in which we can engage Mission Match in our own diocese.
Hello, my name is Hillary Green, and I'm from St. Mary's in Barnstable. And yes, that was my dog. As we all know, the past few months have been very, very difficult for our neighbors who live in areas that were hard hit by natural disasters, particularly hurricanes. We've all heard stories about the challenges that the people in Texas, Florida, Puerto Rico, and other Caribbean islands have had in connecting people whose lives have been dramatically affected by those disasters with people from other places who have personal, material, or financial resources they wish to share in order to help. One of the tools people turned to during this time was the tool that underlies Mission Match, Episcopal Relief and Development's asset map. For example, ERD staff used the map to quickly and efficiently see which congregations had pastoral care teams that could be mobilized quickly to visit storm shelters and assess the needs of those in shelters and provide immediate assistance in the form of gift cards. Texas may seem far away, but it's possible to show how we can use Mission Match to maximize and connect our resources and ministry efforts right now in our diocese. As shown on an earlier slide, St. Mary's Barnstable is one of the parishes that has worked with our team to develop their site on Mission Match. Now, when we search Mission Match about where there are ministries that involve prison services or ministries, it will tell us that St. Mary's was the founding parish of a program called Amazing Grace of Cape Cod, a week-long summer camp opportunity for children from Cape Cod and the South Shore whose parent is or has been incarcerated. Very importantly, Mission Match also will tell us who else is involved in that ministry on Cape Cod, and there are many of our parishes who are, and who to contact in order to learn more about partnering with this ministry on the Cape, or how to create or connect similar programs across our diocese or even the country.
We are excited to get this up and running in our diocese. We also know it'll take some effort to get there. Many folks will need some help, and we're designing our process to account for that. We started this year in 2017 with 9 parishes, which is up from the original 5 you'll see in this slide, apparently because the Cape and Islands Deanery is awesome. Just had to say that. Members of our team use the website, annual reports, photos, news articles to draft a profile of each parish on Mission Match. The next step is to have the parishes review our work and learn how to make the edits with our help. We project that we will help parishes update their site annually, but a parish is allowed to edit it at any time. The asset mapping site from ERD will also be updated and likely in place by January, which will provide an even easier tool to use and share. In 2018, we hope to expand our project to the rest of the Cape and Islands Deanery and move on to working with a second deanery in our diocese. In 2019, we hope to finish creating our Mission Match profiles in that second deanery and invite 3 to 5 congregations in each of our other deaneries to join in. As we go on, we will certainly need the help and participation of other individuals and parish teams in order for the tool to be fully developed for best and widest use. If you are eager to get your parish's information online and start using this tool, we will follow up with an email to all parishes next week with more information and an invitation to be involved.
My name is Isaac Martinez, and I am from St. James Church in Cambridge and the Crossing here at our cathedral. And I worked with Katie Ernst, Matt Stewart, and Jerry Sullivan to research, explore, and discern how our collective structure could better enable all of us to live into our new mission strategy. We heard throughout the process of listening, drafting, and adopting our mission strategy that God's Spirit seems to be moving in our lives, our congregations, and our world in new ways. So we need to explore deeper connections and healthy cultural change in order to respond to God's movement in our time, as generations of our Anglican predecessors have done before us. Our research and feedback within and outside our diocese led the Phase 4 team to realize that this work could represent not only changes to diocesan staff and budget process, but a genuine ecclesiological transformation, that God is calling us to be a renewed church, adaptive, intersectional, vibrant, prayerful, a people increasingly in tune with what God is doing in the world and increasingly equipped to be catalysts for the gospel work of Jesus Christ, both within our parishes and in our wider neighborhoods. Our past year's research leads us to believe that along with the Indaba process to foster relationships and the mission match tool to better share our truest stories, a less centralized model of diocesan support to our congregations will be more helpful to achieve this transformation. In addition to conversations we had across and outside our diocese, we had multiple meetings with our bishops to cross-fertilize our thinking. We believe that the new diocesan staff structure, which includes 3 regional canons deployed in north and western, central, and southern portions of our diocese, has the capacity to advance this process of bringing further energy, support, resources, and relationships to every parish and community. And because this work of becoming a more connected, inclusive, generous, and engaged people requires all of us, not just diocesan staff, council, and committees, we on the Phase 4 team recommend continued discernment, exploration, and experimentation in our parishes, in our neighborhoods, and in the wider church to assess what authority, resources, and functions should reside at the diocesan offices, in parishes, and in some location in between. We recommend that this discernment, exploration, and experimentation focus on how to best use and structure the relationships and resources we covenant to as a diocese in order to support existing lay-led and congregational initiatives, giving additional energy to places where people are already living into the mission strategy. Alongside regional canons, to reimagine our organizational structure needed to support our clergy and congregations, to organize networks of people across our diocese with common interests and passions, and to nurture more diversity in our decision-making bodies and processes. All of this work will require prayerful and committed leadership. So I'll turn it back over to Nancy and Joe to talk about how this will all happen. Thank you.
Shot through every conversation about mission strategy is a piece that each of us hold and that none of us are quite comfortable describing. So I drew the short straw for naming it in front of you today. In short, the mission strategy as we've envisioned it is not business as usual for our diocese. Instead, it depends on a significant cultural shift where decisions that affect life across the diocese are not made by just a few at the top, but are seriously a product of collaboration and discourse across the diocese. But the problem with not having it all run from central headquarters is that it's not all being run from central headquarters. And each of us is going to be called on in new ways to be a part of making this diocese healthier, stronger, more accountable, and more transparent. We'll be moving from a structure that keeps ideas mostly at the top to a wide web of parishes who are in conversation, imagine, conversation with one another all the time.